Hello and welcome once again to the Cup Experience, our pre-race show covering all the details of the 36th America's Cup. This is show number 7, and tonight we begin the finals of the Prada Cup Challenger Selection Series. Hi, I'm Tucker Thompson, broadcasting here in the U.S. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host in Switzerland, Jack Griffin of CupExperience.com. And Jack, of all the racing that we have seen so far, this next round is likely to be the closest and the most unpredictable.
Tucker, to win this series, you've got to win 7 races. And that means like best of 13. I think we're going to see 13 races before we have a winner in this one.
And there are a total of 11 days on the calendar that they can do this racing in, which means we could be in for a long week and a half. It's going to keep us guessing, that's for sure. And of course, whoever wins the finals will go on to earn the right to challenge the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, in the Cup match itself next month in March. Before we determine who that will be, tonight we begin with the sponsor 60. 60 seconds to thank the companies that make the Cup Experience possible, beginning with Mount Gay Rum, the Sailor's Rum. And you can find Mount Gay at drizzly.com or order your own cocktail set from Cocktail Courier on the link below. Then send us your AC watch party photos with Mount Gay Rum and we'll put you right in our shows. Thanks to C-Deck Adhesive Foam Decking, which will literally transform the deck of your boat. It did for mine, and it did, of course, for American Magic as well. We'd like to thank Axel Nobel and All Grip Fast Finishes. The sport's fastest yachts are finished with All Grip Next Generation Top Coat HDT. Thanks to Robin Birking Silver and the American Magic Collection, which is now a collector's edition. You can see American Magic themed cocktail tumblers, bottle coasters, serving trays with the logo, or you can customize them with any logo or boat name or whatever you want. You can see Jack for more information about Robin Birking Silver and visit americanmagic.cupexperience.com. And finally, thanks to PELLINI Coffee, the official coffee supplier of New York Yacht Club American Magic, with its PELLINI Top 100% Arabica Espresso. PELLINI Coffee, keeping sailors energized, and you can find it on Amazon.com. Well, Jack, what we know now, unfortunately, is that American Magic is not going to be moving forward in the competition. And of course, there were many questions that are going to go unanswered as far as to how that happened. But we certainly hope that this is not the end of the team, but the beginning of a legacy that will continue to endure. Of course, if you want to win the Cup, you've got to stay in it. So we certainly hope that they will continue on. And that means all credit to Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. They have earned the spot today to face the Brits in the Prada Cup finals. Here's a look at how we got to this point.
Both Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli and American Magic went into the Prada Cup semi-final bearing scars. Struggling to keep their campaign afloat, American Magic had been racing the clock as they rebuilt their boat. Luna Rossa had been defeated every time by INEOS Team UK and had never taken a win in a round robin where both boats finished.
Protest.
Now the nature of the semi-final meant that a new reality was hitting home. Win or walk away. It was as simple as that. But predicting who would come out on top in this best-of-7 series was far harder. American Magic had been knocked down badly. Could they now bounce back stronger? Their opponents thought so.
I think that right now there is a very dangerous situation for us because I'm sure that American Magic boat will be ready. And they worked 3 years in order to win the America's Cup. And Friday, they still have that plan.
The radio silence from Luna Rossa made it difficult to read the team's strategy. The Italians were giving nothing away. And when the first race got underway, we saw why. Luna Rossa was a different team. Confident, sure-footed and dominant on the racecourse. Conditions were right on the limit. A worst-case scenario for the Americans who needed to take things step by step. Instead, it was out of the frying pan and into the fire. Luna Rossa controlled the start, led to the first gate and extended their lead from there on to take the first win. A precision-based performance, as American Magic struggled to maintain control. Race 2 saw the breeze drop slightly, but the pattern of play remained. Luna Rossa led from the start and, despite a skid through one of the gates, stretched out another impressive lead.
Nice and easy, boys.
Day 2 was now critical. The breeze was down on the previous day, better conditions for American Magic, who needed to pull a rabbit out of the hat and win a race to keep their campaign alive. But despite a better start, they were bounced off by Luna Rossa on the first leg. The Italians dominated the tactics and controlled the game, leading by 13 seconds at gate 1, 22 at gate 2. 26 minutes after the start, Luna Rossa had taken their third win. 3 near flawless races.
You felt pretty good with that jib, Paige?
Time was running out for American Magic. This was it, race 4. Win it and fight another day, or start packing. The first signs were there in the pre-start. Luna Rossa was once again calling the shots. On all but the downwind legs, the Italians were quicker, smarter, and surging ahead once again. A Canton breakdown on American Magic added to their woes and ruled them out of race 4 and their campaign for the America's Cup. For Luna Rossa, the goal had been delivered, a perfect 4-0 scoreline, a passage to the Prada Cup final and a message to their opponents, INEOS Team UK.
We'll be doing everything we can to come out and get some payback on the Poms.
Definitely going to have a good fight against the British. We want to win every race.
That battle starts on the 13th of February in a 1st-to-7 series.
For the 4th time in 170 years, we're not going to have an American challenger in the Challenger finals, but we will have, for the first time, 2 European challengers.
So, yeah, I mean, this is for 2 European challengers. This is historic. It's historic that we don't have an American team in the finals. This is going to be a knockdown, drag-out battle. I can't wait for it to start.
Well, we can't either, and we've come up with a fun exercise for everybody tonight. And Jack, I know that you're excited about this. I am too, because neither of us have any idea how this is going to play out. But when you look at how the media has reacted to these 2 teams, Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, INEOS Team UK, there's almost nothing in it. Yesterday's press conference, nothing was given by either team. So here in the show, we're going to take the time to analyze Jack's opinion of the teams and my opinion, and we're going to see the reasoning behind each of the ratings that we've come up with. So we've created a matrix of these 8 characteristics. On the left, program resources, design, boat speed, sailing team, crew work, match racing, tactics, and Jack, your favorite, the X factor that you added in. So Jack and I have each independently filled out these, and we don't know what each other has written, but this is how we rated each of those 8 characteristics. So, Jack, when I look at this, I can see that we both agree that program resources is the most important, followed by design, followed by boat speed. And then we get down to sailing team, which is what I have ranked next. You have tactics. You think tactics is certainly higher than the sailing team?
Yeah, I do. You know, this is match racing, and we've seen that winning the pre-start is a huge part of winning a race. So and then the other thing is I put tactics right after boat speed. If you've got a fast boat, your tactician looks smart. So that's why I've got tactics up there.
Okay, and then I put tactics next, so we're kind of close on that. Then you have match racing, where I have tactics. So you've moved match racing up a lot higher than I have. I have it all the way down at the bottom.
Yeah, same deal. This is match racing, and it's not just the pre-start. It's what do you do during the course of the race? Do you have to cover? I predict we're going to see lee bow maneuvers. We're going to see some traditional. I don't like to use that word. We're going to see some real match racing in this event, and tactics, match racing. Boy, I tell you, that's what I want to see.
Well, after match racing, you put sailing team, I put crew work. And the reason is I think you can't have match racing without first being able to get the boat around the racetrack. And you've got crew work dead last. What do you make of that?
Well, both of the sailing teams are absolutely the best sailors on the planet. So I think there's not too much to decide between that. And on the crew work side, I'll talk a little bit later about the boat layouts and where I think that comes in. But, let's just get into the details here and see what our numbers are.
Okay, let's have a look. And I put match racing last because, in my opinion, you've got to have a good sailing team, then you have to have crew work, and then if you've got both of those things, you can obviously get to tactics and to match racing. And then there's the X factor, which we'll get to in a second. But as you say, Jack, here we go. Let's look at how we scored them. First, these are my numbers, so I'll explain to you. I have INEOS Team UK with a slight edge, roughly an 11% advantage over Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, on a total score of 80 out of 1 to 10 in these factors. I give them a 63, and I give the Italians a 56. And we'll go through each of these categories, but let's see how, Jack, how did you rate the teams?
Yeah, well, I put a lot of weight on my X factor, so we'll certainly get a look at those numbers. But I think it's very even. But I lean with Luna Rossa as the team that I'm going to put my money on.
Interesting. So you've got roughly a 5% advantage, maybe less, to the Italians, and I've got more of a 10 or 11% advantage to the Brits. So let's see how all this goes down when we aggregate them together. So overall, we do agree that the Brits in general have a score of 78%, and the Luna Rossa is behind with 74%. So let's see how all this shakes down, Jack. Beginning first with program resources. Now, I give them both a 9. The only reason I didn't give them a 10 is if your resources were completely perfect, budget's unlimited, you've got the best managers. Basically, if you make no mistakes at all, you get a 10. So in my opinion, no team could get a 10, but 9 is about the best you can do. And I gave both teams a 9 because both Jim Ratcliffe and Patrizio Bertelli have given these teams a very healthy budget. But you give the Brits a little bit of an edge in this category, a 10 versus Luna Rossa's 8. Why is that?
Yeah, I do. They're close, and I think that first of all, I tip to the budget from INEOS Team UK, but also look at the management. You've got Grant Simmer is the CEO of INEOS Team UK. Grant won his first America's Cup in 1983 when he was 24 years old. I mean, you talk about somebody with experience of how to run an America's Cup team, how to organize the team. It's tough to beat Grant. Max Serena has got years of experience as well, but sorry to say, Max, he hasn't won the America's Cup yet for Italy. Now, he was with Emirates Team New Zealand the last time around, but you wouldn't say that he was certainly not the leader of that team. So in terms of program resources, I think there's a budget edge, maybe not a big one, but a budget edge for INEOS Team UK, and the strength of the leadership. You've got Ben, with the overall leader of the team, and then Grant Simmer as the CEO. I got to give them tip things to INEOS, in favor of INEOS Team UK on that one.
Okay, and then let's go to design. Now, I gave actually Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli the edge in design, and you did too. My reasoning is simply this. This is hull number 1, and everybody knows by now that the Brits respectfully got it wrong. And so their next hull was a big improvement. Also, remember, Jack, in the 35th America's Cup, they also got their design wrong. So they've been playing catch-up ever since in design versus Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. They nailed it in the first hull. They nailed it in the second hull. They didn't make very many changes. But this is where I give a little bit of an advantage back to the Brits because their second hull, albeit in my opinion nowhere near as beautiful as the Prada hull, they've made massive performance improvements. So they start to come back up, in my opinion, on the scorecard there. But the edge overall still to Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. Would you agree?
Yep, I do, but for slightly different reasons. One reason is obviously they made, of all the 4 teams, they made the fewest changes from boat 1 to boat 2, and the other teams came closer to the Luna Rossa design with their boat 2. But I also have a little bit the mad scientist factor. I mean, Martin Fisher is the head of design. I love Martin. He lives in I think in Noumea in New Caledonia, And he is a brilliant guy and brilliant people sometimes, get it really, really right and sometimes not. But I think there's a mad scientist factor in there that makes me tip the design side to Luna Rossa.
Usually you're the more analytical one, Jack, and I'm the more sort of person that goes creative off in left field, and you have to bring me back into the center. But I'm going to give you the curveball on that one. Now let's shift to the sailing team. This one we both agree. Both gave INEOS a 9 over a 7 for Luna Rossa, and it's simply, not sailing team rather, but boat speed. I jumped ahead. Boat speed, yep. We both give INEOS Team UK a 7, but you give the Italians a slight edge overall. Explain that.
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. Luna Rossa surprised us by being strong both in the light and in the heavier air during the round robin and in the semifinals. I also have a question, and this is partly related to the design question as well. Remember all those problems that INEOS had in December during the America's Cup World Series? Have they really got them all solved? I hope so for them, but that's a little bit of a nagging question in my mind. So boat speed, yeah, I'd call them even, but let's see. I certainly can't pick a faster boat out of the two.
No, I would agree too. And I've read a lot about both teams. Both teams seem to agree that this boat, Luna Rossa, is a bit of an edge upwind and a bit of an edge in light air. The British boat, certainly, both teams seem to agree, has more of an edge in breeze. And it's interesting because Ben Ainslie in the press conference didn't seem very happy that they have reduced the wind limits from 23 knots down to 21. He sort of reluctantly said, look, that's the way the rules are. We have to abide by them. But he made his point he wasn't happy. That tells me psychologically that they've moded higher for a stronger breeze, and they're more confident in a stronger breeze, and now they've had a few knots taken away from them. So anyway, as far as boat speed's concerned, we're relatively even. That brings us to the sailing team, which, as I said before, is exactly even. We both give the Brits an advantage, 9 over 7, and there's not much more to say about that, is there?
Only that, both of these teams have phenomenal sailors. It's just that the Brits have more experience. And so let's see how the boys on the Italian boat step up, but they're the ones who are sort of the more rookies on the team. Okay,
now moving to crew work. And this is where we start to see some differences. The Brits, I've given an advantage, 9. I've given them a very high mark for crew work. In fact, in my opinion, since the Christmas Cup, and our scale is not rating them from before the Prada Cup started, where if we did that, it'd be way skewed as a disadvantage for the British team. But they've made such an improvement in all areas that I score them higher in crew work now, all the way around the track, compared to the races they've had with Luna Rossa, which haven't been as strong. Now, Luna Rossa has been said to have, with the dual helmsman, that they're really good in their maneuvers, but that hasn't really played out that way, has it?
No, it's an interesting thing. So Luna Rossa only has one guy who shifts from side to side in the maneuvers, right? So Pietro Sabello, the mainsail trimmer. On INEOS Team UK, you've got Ben and Giles Scott and Bledenmon, who change side to side. So the mainsail trimmer. So they've got more moving pieces. It's going to be really fascinating to see how this works out, because Luna Rossa has such, again, it's this kind of unusual factor of how the Italians have approached this problem. I want to see how they do. They've had more time to work on it. Let's see what happens in the racing.
Okay, and now take us to this next slide here.
Okay, so I like this one because this shows how I think that the boat layout that INEOS came up with is actually the best of all 4 teams. What we're seeing here is an aerial shot. We see 4 guys grinding. Normally they only have 3 grinding on each side. The 4th guy, the guy all the way astern in these aft in these among these 4, is the the flight controller. They have a flight controller on each side. They don't have to change. They've got Lee McMillan on one side, Graham Spence on the other. They've got the two forwardmost grinders are real muscle men. I mean, you've got like Freddie Carr and Chris Brittle are among those grinders. The third guy back also has some headsel trimming duties to do, and they're the only ones who have the grinders facing outboard, or their handles are mounted transversely. And a big advantage of that, I think, is when the G-forces that get generated when these boats go through a maneuver, the guys who are facing fore and aft on the other teams, they have to hang on to the handles and keep from getting thrown from side to side. If these guys get thrown from side to side, they just pump that energy right into the handles. I think this is a really, really smart boat layout.
Okay.
Now, here's the other thing. This is this is a screen grab from a video, because we don't get the photos that I'd like to show things, but this is Francesco Bruni. But doesn't have his hand on the wheel. That's because Jimmy Spithill is steering on the other side of the boat. Kekko's got his right hand on the push buttons, which are for the boards up, boards down, and he's got his left hand on a slider switch that is the flight control switch, which is basically the flap control on the wing. So he's got a lot to do, and Jimmy's got a lot to do on the other side. So I've got to steer, I've got to do flight control when I'm not steering, and I've got to do tactics, because they don't have a named tactician in their crew. It's an unusual setup. The big advantage is you've got two guys who are super talented, on both of those controls, but each of them has a lot to do. And you've only got one guy, Pietro Sabello, who changes side to side, and also now is doing helping out with some tactics, looking for the wind.
Okay. I hear you there, and I tend to agree. Now let's move to match racing, and this is obviously the most important part of a two-boat race, which the America's Cup is. I give both teams even marks, roughly a 7. There's more room to go, but I think they're both even. You've rated them pretty close as well, INEOS Team UK with a small advantage. The reason that I rate them even is this. I think that from a match racing standpoint, Jimmy Spithill is probably stronger in the pre-starts. But once you get the boat on the race course, and when I say stronger, only by a small margin, once you get on the race course, though, I think that Ainsley and Giles Scott are a little bit stronger positionally, and we've seen that. So that's why I give them kind of an even marks in match racing. How about you?
Yeah, I started out by giving 1 point less to Luna Rossa than I actually did, and then I changed my mind because I was thinking, okay, Kekko has the least experience among the three helmsmen, Jimmy, Kekko, and Ben. But, Kekko was the guy who came in and tacked underneath INEOS in the very first race between those two during the America's Cup World Series. He is not timid about, going all out in the match racing tactics in the pre-start. The one thing that I tip in favor of Ben and INEOS is, Ben was the B boat driver for Team New Zealand in the build-up to the 2007 America's Cup. So Ben was the one who was being basically the sparring partner for Dean Barker in that America's Cup. So he has a lot of very high-level match racing experience, because if you're the B-boat driver for Team New Zealand, you're a top match racer, that's for sure.
That's a pretty fair point. And we end with something that, in my opinion, probably should be a little bit higher on the scale, and that's going to be tactics. And this has become the determining factor, I think, so far in these races, as we've seen it. I give INEOS Team UK the edge. A 9, in my opinion, is almost a 10. As I mentioned, you can't all the way get to perfect. But they're definitely, in my opinion, ahead of Luna Rossa, clearly. And you agree even more so, giving them a 10. And the reason there is Giles Scott. They have just been nailing these tactics, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And it's Giles is great. Ben is great. Not that Jimmy and Kekko are not great. It's just that it's the way the boat is set up. They're the only team that have set up the boat to make the tactician free to do his job as a tactician. They have the tactician, Giles. The only thing he does besides, looking up the race course, keeping his head out of the boat, the only other thing he does is he's on the wheel when Ben is crossing from side to side in a maneuver. Other than that, his duties are to be a tactician. Not to be a grinder like Terry Hutchinson was, not to be a helmsman or a flight controller like Jimmy and Keko are. He gets to be a tactician, and so that's why I give them, the real edge in tactics.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the last thing that we go to is the X Factor. This is what you added, and I don't know why. So I'm curious to know what you thought, because you have scored Luna Rossa 10 in the X Factor. I went in favor of INEOS Team UK, and here's why. In my opinion, Ben Ainslie is the X Factor. He just seems to have, among the best sailors in the world, he's on another level. So if you have crew work that's even, if you have a boat speed that's even, and you get in a race with Ben Ainslie and it counts, and he's up against the wall, he just seems to have that extra amount of intensity that enables him to pull it off. So I give the X Factor to the advantage of INEOS Team UK. Jack, it's your witness.
Haha. Okay. I'm the left brain analytical geek engineer, but this is where my right brain emotional side comes into play. Remember Goldfinger and the Aston Martin? You offer me an Aston Martin or a Ferrari, I'm going to take the Ferrari every day. There's something about the Italians that has a kind of energy, a kind of childlike joy that you see from Keko, the enthusiasm of their fans, and they're getting a lot of support from back home. That's my X Factor. It's just, I don't know exactly how to say it, but I'll just say if you give me a choice between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari, I want the Ferrari.
Okay, fair point. So that gives a big advantage to Luna Rossa as far as the X Factor is concerned. But overall, I think we can both agree that INEOS Team UK has got the advantage. And interestingly, Jack, when I looked at what the rest of the media has sort of rated, and granted, nobody knows, so we're all guessing in this, and we won't have any hard numbers until we actually see them race. But everybody seems to have INEOS with a slight advantage. Some people think it's more than others. In fact, if you look at the betting in New Zealand, which they allow sports betting on sailing down there, it's almost a factor of 2 to 1. You and I are a little bit closer. I think we've got it in less than 10% combined. So anyway, let's see what the sailors think. I had a chance this week, a very special chance, to interview both a sailor from the INEOS Team UK, the British team, and the Italian team. First up is Matt Cornwell, or Catflap as he's known. He's the rules advisor for INEOS Team UK. And here's what he had to say about the difference between the two teams.
It's pretty hard to pick solid weaknesses. There's not many chinks in their armor, so to speak. They pre-start really well. There's no question about that. So of the 10 starts they did in the Prada Cup final, they only lost one, and that was against us, and there was a huge wind shift. So the rest of them, they either won the start or the first cross. So, it just shows you how tenacious they are. They've got a nice little pre-start routine which works well for them. And then they're just solid. You watch them in the semi-finals against American Magic. They just look really solid around the course. They had the odd little wobble here and there, but we all do. We've all sailed these boats so little relative to where we'd want to be. It's the nature of this cup, really, and what's happened over the last couple of years. But they're good. They sail well. I think boat speed wise too, they look like they've made a gain. We won't be 100% sure how much compared to us until we line up with them. Hopefully we're similar. I think in the light air stuff too, I think they'll be in the sort of 9-10 knots marginal forwarding conditions. I think we expect them to see have an edge over us. So we kind of know that's coming. But yeah, they're not going to be a pushover by any stretch.
And what would you say are their weaknesses?
Good question. We've tended to feel in the stronger breeze that maybe we've had a bit of an edge there. I think that gap might have closed now from what we've seen. I think we feel tactically, not that we're smarter tactically, we feel that our one helmsman, one tactician setup favors us a little bit. And I think the nature of having more people able to sail the boat in tight maneuvers might be a slight advantage. We have the 2 flight controllers, you know, Giles, Blenheim doing the main, and then Ben. So we sort of have the 5 guys who are doing the maneuvers, whereas they're using 4 and the rest are grinding. So I think that could be a slight advantage at times. But I mean, you know, the tactical role with Giles and Ben is definitely working really well. I think when you listen to the audio from all the different teams, I like the way ours sounds the best. I think we have a nice sweet spot in 14 knots plus. That tends to be where we're happy. The guys are confident when it's top end, you know, 20 knots. They're happy to start throwing the thing around. And then I think, you know, just I would, as talented as Francesco Bruni and Jimmy Spithill are, I think man for man, I like our sailing team better than theirs. And I think if it comes down to an even, if the boats are even, then I think over a longer series where you have to win 7 points, it's quite long really when you think about it, which is a good thing. I think we might edge it, but there you go. We'll see. Who knows what we're going to get? That's the sort of beauty of it all, really. It all starts again, and everything that's happened before doesn't mean anything. And then, let's face it, we could go out there on Saturday and they might be 2 knots quicker than us around the course in every condition, and we'll just have to deal with that as it comes. But yeah, if it's even, I think we'll certainly revel in the challenge of it. I think in every cup I've been in, the team that's won the round robin hasn't actually been the team that's won the America's Cup. So yeah, it's all about just keeping on going until wherever that last day is. You've just got to keep going, never give up, keep pushing, looking for those little gains. They're out there, they're everywhere. Just keep looking for them, and the team that finds the most is the one that's going to win.
I think he's right. And it's interesting that Matt or Cat Flap seem to say that they're confident they have a bit of an edge. We'll see if they do when the racing begins. Now, our next guest is the port helmsman on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, Francesco Bruni. Here's what he had to say.
Both teams are very, very strong teams. I think it's, to be fair, I think we have a similar budget. I mean, I don't know the details, but the budget of both teams, I would say that is similar. We started pretty much the campaign at the same time. Team INEOS had some periods where they were struggling a lot with the systems, with many different things. Probably their boat one was not ideal, but now they are very strong. They have a very strong sailing team and a good boat. So I think there will be some great racing, I'm sure. Both challengers has an INEOS. We have been doing some big improvements, and the racing between us is going to be very important because it's going to give us more time in the water in a racing environment. So in the past, they have not been very reliable with their boat. So, but lately it's been exactly the opposite. So I don't know. I think maybe we could potentially have a small edge in the very light wind, maybe. But that is a thing that is probably 3 or 4 weeks old. And in 3 or 4 weeks, boats are changing a lot. And lately they've been doing some very big improvements in the light. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe if I have to pick one thing, probably I would say that in very marginal foiling conditions, we could have a small edge. But it's a very big maybe. Ideally, you will have less people grinding and more people sharing jobs that are not related to grinding. But we know that you have to deal with energy on board, and having more energy sometimes is a very good thing. So it's really a hard balance. Sometimes can go good for you and sometimes bad. The fact that we have 2 helmsmen and we can throw a maneuver at any moment, any time, that is a potential gain on the pre-start. But we know we are going to race against Ben, and Ben is a very strong match racer, and so it's really we have to perform well against him in order to have an edge on the pre-start. We can do it. We know we can do it. We've been working a lot on the water and in the simulator to have a lot of moves to play against him. But it's not easy. We are talking about Serb and Ainsley, and full respect. At the moment, I think that's the situation where the guy who will win for a small margin.
Well, if we've learned anything watching the racing so far, is that we have no idea what to expect. Expect the unexpected.
Exactly. That's what I keep saying. In 1 week, boats have been transforming, and the guy who had to win for sure has been losing, and vice versa. So it's very hard to make any prediction, and that's probably the good fun of it.
Well, it's funny. Even Francesco Bruni is respectful, and in some ways was giving some credit to the Brits. But you hear him wrap up there. Even they have no idea, and I think that's what makes this next stage exciting. We sent a poll out last week on Facebook, on our Facebook channel for the Cup Experience here, and we asked you guys, who do you think is going to win the Prada Cup Finals? And here we have the answer. Almost 3,000 people responded. 72% of you think it's going to be INEOS Team UK. That's a much stronger percentage than you and I, Jack. So we were a bit more in the middle there, and of course only 28%. Are in favor of Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. So that's actually a little bit more in line with the betting that we're seeing down in New Zealand. Now, speaking of New Zealand, the schedule racing begins today. It's the 13th in New Zealand, the 12th here in the U.S. 2 races on tap. Then tomorrow, February 13th for us, are 2 more races. And interestingly, they've scheduled racing on the 14th in New Zealand. My guess is a man and a single young guy probably made this schedule, because nobody who's married would have scheduled racing on the 14th of February. You all know that would have been a mistake. So anyway, we get the 14th off, but they don't in New Zealand. Then next week, Jack, we have no idea what's going to happen with the schedule, but tell us today what's going to happen with the conditions.
Well, the weather forecast is a little bit on the light side, so it could be as low as 4 knots up 14. I think it's the latest is it'll be somewhere between 10 to 14 out of the northeast. So that means they'll be out on Racecourse A. Racecourse A should be good conditions, should be fantastic racing.
Okay, and it's going to be a bit lighter. Now, we think that favors INEOS Team UK, at least historically. So, Jack, I'm going to put you in a hot seat. 2 races tonight. Who's going to win?
Good question. I'll tell you what, I am not betting any money on any of this, but I think we're going to finish the day 1-1. That's my bet. The score is going to be 1-1 at the end of the day.
All right, I'm going to go 1-1 as well, and that leaves us to close the show with our traditional toast. I've got my Mount Gay rum. You've got your PELLINI coffee. Here's to 1-1 and some exciting racing, Jack.
To some exciting racing, absolutely.
Cheers. All right. Well, there we go. So you can watch it live on NBC Sports Gold if you're in the United States. You can watch it delayed on the internet, YouTube, or americascup.com, and also time delayed on TV, NBC Sportsnet. You can also ask Jack. If you go to cupexperience.com, click on Ask Jack, and Jack will put together answers and some creative packages have been done in the shows so far. So be sure to ask Jack. And that's it for us. The 7th day of the Prada Cup continues, and we're excited to see it. I hope that you guys are too. Once again, we hope you've enjoyed the Cup Experience, broadcasting at 8 p.m. before every scheduled race day from now through the end of the 36th America's Cup. Join us. Tell your friends. You can comment on our Facebook page. You can also join our mailing list. Send me an email, tuckertlive@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to put your questions or comments in the shows. Also, send us photos of you drinking PELLINI coffee or Mount Gay. If you're having a watch party, we want to hear from you. Videos are fine too. We'll put you in the show. Be sure to subscribe on our Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter @TuckerTLive, Instagram, TuckerThompson1, and make sure you visit Jack's website, cupexperience.com. Sign up for his newsletter for all things America's Cup, and click on the Ask Jack section. Anyway, that's it for us. I'm Tucker Thompson here in the United States. The racing is going to begin an hour later tonight. Instead of starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be 10. And I think that's going to be the schedule. I'll have to double check, but I think that's going to be the schedule for the rest of the regatta. So late nights here in the U.S., even later if you're Jack in Switzerland. But anyway, for Jack Griffin, my co-host, and also our producer-director Mason Sheen, I'm Tucker Thompson. Thanks once again for watching the Cup Experience.